Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Field Pass Podcast for this week of your NFL football dialogue. Um, Very exciting week that we're coming back out of. Really interesting AFC North showdown and the Browns Ravens game, and then a stunner with the Texans pulling out a win over the Bengals in a really a game where both teams were trying to lose, especially there in that fourth quarter. But yeah, Brady, you have anything to say before we get into it for the next
I
week ahead
mean,
of us?
it's starting to get good, especially this AFC race. It's like 8 teams that are 10, 11 teams that have a shot right now to make this playoffs. So these next couple weeks could get very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be certainly incredibly interesting. I've already started seeing people posting like the New York Times playoff calculator. Um, so hopefully, if you're listening to this, your team is succeeding in every definition of the word. But if not, we're here to. There's going to be some fair share of wound licking today. So, with that being said, Brandon, why don't you just lead us into our first headline?
What's going on with the Bills, man? I mean, they started 3-1, or it was either 3-1, 4-1, and now they're all the way down to 5-5. Have did they lose two or three straight?
So their most recent loss came against the
It
Broncos
was
on that
Broncos and
in the game,
Bengals.
which was a really solid game, and then the Bengals were their most recent game after that, and they lost that.
Yeah. So I mean, they fired their OC on Tuesday morning after the Monday night loss. And I don't know how much that's going to fix things. Because, I mean, they turned the ball over 4 times on Monday night. James could, I mean, it should have been five because even on the 50-yard run he had, literally just dropped the ball. He decided to dribble.
In that crazy Jesus directed football.
Yeah.
I
And
don't know
then
how that happens.
the possession before, they botched the handoff. Josh Allen was throwing interceptions. Like, this it's getting real ugly for this Bills offense, and we've seen Trayvon Diggs defend his brother, and it's just I think the Bills are falling apart. I don't If they don't make the playoffs this year, they're gonna clean house, I think, and I don't think Diggs is gonna want to be there much longer.
And that's the thing. This is pure speculation. Obviously, I'm just a little grunt freaking 21-year-old who gets on the internet and has no indication, no sources as it relates to any of this. But do you think that Diggs, like, when he sees his brother tweeting this stuff about his team and basically taking shots at Josh Allen, you saw his most recent tweet related to the Bills was the insinuation that Josh Allen wasn't good until Diggs was actually there on the roster. Do you think that if Diggs wasn't at least feeling a sort of way towards this franchise and towards this organization, he would tell his brother to stop? Because those are two pretty high profile statements to be
I th-
making as a brother. And I think it kind of, in my opinion, it kind of gives you a little bit of insight as to where Stefan is at,
yeah,
if the way that his brother is speaking. Because like I know if I was on a team, my brother was trash talking it, and it's basically what we've seen in this Bills offense was the so-called connection between Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen. And like I would just be like, hey, cool it a little bit. Like everyone's upset right now. Like the whole franchise is upset. We should have won that game. It's pretty clear that that's not being said. That I don't know if the tweets have been deleted or anything, but the fact that they got the numbers that they did, I think it's not nothing.
yeah. It's basically Stephon through Trayvon Diggs
That's what
is
I'm
what I'm
thinking too.
thinking. That t- Trayvon knows how his brother's feeling,
Hmm.
and he's tweeting about it basically. I I don't think going in this season, uh, Stephon was that like happy with where the Bills are at, and I
No,
guarantee he's not happy now. I
no,
mean,
certainly not.
the playoff race is going to be real hard for them because it's not like they got like an easy schedule the rest of the way.
No, and I'm looking at their most recent, really these couple five games that they have going ahead, which I mean nearly brings you to the end of the season. Um, it's Jets, Eagles, Chiefs, Cowboys, Chargers, Patriots, and Dolphins.
Yeah.
Like with the way that Josh Allen turns over the ball and the Jets defense ability to make those turnovers, like I see that game as like one of the worst matchups possible for the
We
Bills,
saw what happened
especially.
week 1.
Yeah, and it's on a short-ish week with the fact that you played Monday and you're going on Sunday, so you lose a day of rest, and it's just I don't like it. I genuinely think the Bills have a lot of changing to do, and I don't think bringing an OC in, or like a new OC in. Now, granted, they've gone to like an interim staff that they've already had on staff. I don't think that's going to solve the problems, and I certainly think that it, doing anything that you need to do to put a clamp down on Josh Allen's turnover like problem, because it is a problem, would relegate him to not being an elite quarterback. Like if you're an elite quarterback, you need to hit those deep shots that Josh Allen is attempting to make on those turnover plays. And if you can't hit those shots and you consistently make that problem, you are not an elite quarterback. I'm not saying that he's not an elite quarterback right now. I believe that he is. Like I believe that he's a top 5 quarterback. But if you bring in where half passes, I don't know if it's true, but it looks like that in the game that he was playing against the Bills. Half the passes he's throwing are behind the line of scrimmage. Like, can we even should we have a discussion about whether or not Josh Allen is this solid?
Yeah, that's a discussion I don't think people are ready for.
No.
Yeah, but I mean, we'll we'll see. There's still a lot of season ahead of them. They still got 8 more games, so they can easily turn this around, or they may not. We'll see. But I think this is an interesting story because I mean, everyone just assumes, at least these past couple years, that they'll be in the playoffs, and it's not looking that
Yeah,
good
I
right
don't think
now.
they will. I don't think they will.
Yeah,
After
you
that
made the
loss,
prediction last week, and you
yeah.
said you didn't think they will. But I also didn't think they'd lose this week, and the Broncos tried to give them every chance they could.
After that 70-point loss, the Broncos defense has kind of got it together, it seems.
They
Like
they have them as a whole. They have really.
there were a couple weeks where they were reeling, and I mean, how can you not? But I mean, they were able to come back and get that win on the Bears. I mean, they eventually ended up losing to the Jets and the Chiefs and then the Broncos, but they've started to build it back up again with that win against the Chiefs, and then you take down the Bills again, who are supposed to be kind of one of the elite members of the AFC. So with with where they're at, it's not like they're in a great spot, but
Broncos.
yeah,
Their season's not over just yet.
yeah. All right. So I think that that's what you can say essentially about the Bills. They're not in a great place. Going forward, they're gonna have to trudge through a whole lot of mud and make a whole lot of seemingly inconceivable things happen in order to get to the playoffs. And my prediction that they're not gonna make it, I am I would dump more money on that if I had the capacity to. All right. So next highlight we have for you guys this week is the Ravens blow another lead against the Browns, which like, here's the thing. I actually was thinking about this before, like 2 days before this we were gonna film this. And I was thinking of coming on here with my Chubb jersey on, with my Browns beanie on, like, because I don't know if you guys remember, I listed all the reasons why the Browns should have lost that game. I I said they probably should have won that game at home. Deshaun Watson was coming off of that Titans win. He looked his best, and we really should have won that game, but we're going to win this one. And I was right. I was somehow correct about that. But as of today, we've seen that Deshaun Watson is going to be out for the rest of the season, which then leaves us with DTR and PJ Walker as our stewards for this team, which I'm not super excited about, but I think that there's a little bit more nuance into it as we'll go on further. But with that being said, let's just talk about this game. Massive win. Massive win for the AFC North as a whole, and massive win for the Browns. You of course had that awful first play of the game where Deshaun Watson just throws it directly into Kyle Hamilton's hands, and they throw it for a pick six. But the defense really showed up. Myles Garrett is continuing to put up a defensive player of the year caliber season. And They were really able to limit Lamar down. There were a couple instances in which they were within field goal range, and one they got a block, and two they were just pushed right back to their 50. So really no one's hitting that, not even Justin Tucker. So there are a number of opportunities where the defense was able to shut down points. Barring a couple crazy runs from their most recently acquired undrafted rookie, the Browns defense had them on lock, and Deshaun Watson, with what we now know is a high ankle sprain and a broken shoulder bone, was able to throw 14 for 14 on this really the second best defense in the NFL at this point. And just convert in some crazy opportunities, and then also have that nice run that was able to put them in field position. It should be super inspiring if you were a Browns fan, but today it's just sad. But we don't live in the well, right now we're living in the past because we're talking about it, but that's at least a win that the Browns can hold on to. And then, I mean, it's good for the rest of the AFC North teams as well because it kind of grounds the Ravens and shows that they are beatable. So encouraging to see for I think everyone in the division.
Yeah, the Browns looked pretty impressive. They came, I believe you guys were down 24-9 and then 31-16, 17, something like that. So you
Yeah,
guys were down 14, two different instances. Ravens blow another lead. This is the story of them last year, and they did it again. But I mean, you got to give credit to the Browns. Deshaun, like, I mean, we now know that he had a broken bone and a high ankle sprain, and he was still running like all over the field. He wasn't like as explosive, but he was still getting like he was still scrambling when he had to, which is pretty impressive. It is sad to see him exit the season like this because I mean I feel like the Browns were at a high, and this just brings you guys down. But I mean
yeah.
your season is not over yet.
No, we
You
have one of the
still
easier schedules
you
left, and
still
we've
have to
gone
play
through
the Steelers and Bengals once, which
in
you play the
Texans.
Steelers this week. And then you got I don't really know who else is on your schedule off the top of my head, but I mean, it's you guys are sitting at 6-3. You can get it done. So you haven't lost all hope, even though your starting backfield is now out. But I mean, you still got Amari Cooper and Joku, and you still got that great defense who has proved they can keep you in games. So it's going to be
Yeah.
interesting for the Browns, and we'll see how far they can ride this.
Yeah, I'm still of the belief that this is a playoff team. Like, and I will get into that later. Like that kind of, I guess, shows my cards a little bit as to where I think this team is. You have to win your next, not your next four consecutively. You need to win four of your next eight, which I
Yeah,
think is a possibility when you play against the when you play against the Jags, we play against the Rams, we play against the Bears, we play against the Jets. So like really, and we also play against the Broncos. So
yeah.
you
So
need to Broncos, Rams, Bears, Jets, I see incredibly winnable. And then if you can sneak one or two out of the Bengals, Steelers, Jags, and Texans, I think that you're in great position. So it's just, it sucks, man. Like I don't want to toot the Browns horn too much, but like it looked like the pieces were coming together, but we're just gonna have to wait until next season again, which is the most irritating thing about this trade is that I have at least we were able to put some tape up this season, but the most irritating thing about obviously the baggage you get from having Deshaun Watson is an incredible one as well, but like just not being able to produce made it so much worse. Um, and I think that at least since we got Table B, it's encouraging to have that going to the next season.
yeah,
But enough of that depression. Uh, the 49ers have a really dominant win against the Jags. They were only really
yes,
able to put up 3 points on this 49ers defense, which is kind of what we were insinuating would happen. We're not oracles or anything, but you can kind of have an idea that really what the 49ers needed was just the ringing of the bell. They needed the ability to go over into their corner, get their face cut a little bit, and get some advice on how to go forward. And that's what they did. You had Brock Purdy throw for 19 for 26, which I think is not being highlighted against it's against genuinely a solid defense in that of the Jags. Threw for 296 yards and 3 TDs. Was able to connect with with some of their better players in out of Kittle. Unfortunately, McCaffrey didn't get a score, which breaks a streak, but that wasn't needed. When you're up 34-3 on this team, then you just don't need to if you just keep relying on what's working, and they did. Uh, and really I think that this is the correct spot where we should view the 49ers as a team that is dominant, and going forward should have all the accolades that we had previously been giving them before they went on that three loss plunge.
Yeah, they yeah, 'cause they started 5-0, then we're 0-3, and now they're at 6-3, and they're sitting. I b believe they're sitting on top of the division. Oh, because them and the Seahawks have the same record, but the 49ers beat the Seahawks. So yeah, they're sitting on top of the NFC West right now, and they're actually, even though they lose that 3-game losing streak, they're still in a good position to where
Yeah.
they can maybe. I think the 1 seed's kind of out of reach with the Eagles. I think they're gonna have that locked up, but they could maybe get a 2 or 3 seed, and who knows. But the one thing that is telling, Brock Purdy didn't turn the ball over, did he?
Mm-mm.
If I'm remembering that correctly.
Unless he fumbled, which I don't see anything on here. The score certainly doesn't indicate that, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not seeing
Brock
anything.
Purdy did not turn the ball over. And that was like the one of the big problems in the 3-game losing streak is the Vikings, he threw 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter. The Bengals, he had a couple turnovers, and then the Browns one as well. And when they're not turning the ball over, they're scoring some points. So, and that shows on the score. And I don't know. Another thing to have a conversation is like, what is wrong with the Jags when they play like a good team? Like they've
Dude,
been
I
get
don't. Trevor Lawrence is not. I think that that's where you start. I mean, Trevor Lawrence really hasn't been living up to the hype. I had people that I would listen to talking about whether or not they wanted Joe Burrow or Trevor Lawrence going forward into the future, and I'm like, guys, are
that
we
shouldn't
serious?
even be a
I think
conversation.
that we've gotten a little bit high on our own supply when we're having this conversation because Trevor Lawrence is good. Like he's a solid QB, and I understand the feeling of wanting to bet on him as opposed to Burrow, where I kind of had a feeling that we had seen his ceiling when in that Super Bowl season. But we got to be serious. Like
Yeah.
it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't, and this is kind of what you're showing when the Jags have lost some serious games. I mean,
Let
they lost the Texans, which they kind of normally do, but
let's let me just tell you, like they've beat the Colts twice, the Falcons, the Saints, Steelers, and Bills. Their best win is the Bills right now, and that's still not even that good of a win right now. And they lost to the Chiefs, Texans, and 49ers. And they lost 17-9 to the Chiefs, but that game wasn't that score doesn't reflect like kind of how dominant it was. Like they've got the games that they've lost, even though it was a one possession game, the Chiefs, like they really didn't have a chance of winning the whole time. Like they've just been getting blown out of the water by these teams, and it's I don't know, man. They need to. I mean, because they got Titans this week. They play the Texans again, who beat them by 20. Then they play Bengals, Browns, Ravens in a 4-week span. So it's Texans, Bengals, Browns, Ravens. That's not that's not a very favorable 4 weeks for them.
I think you lose three of those four.
Yeah.
Like I think the Browns, even with DTR at the helm, I think that he will be settled in, and then the Bengals are just going to be brutal, man. That's in prime time as well. That's not going to be a great. That's not going to be a fun one for them.
Yeah, and
It- yeah,
I could very well see him going 0-4.
yeah. If I mean the defense has been good, like, but they haven't been top caliber, and I can totally see like Levis connecting with Hopkins like a couple times like he did in his debut game, and that game easily sneaking away from them. So it could be in a situation. I think they are probably the worst 6-3 team, other than the Steelers,
Yeah.
who are 6-3. Um, I think that those two are at a place where they don't deserve their record.
Yeah, we'll talk about that more later
Yeah,
on, but I think we've said enough about our Jags, but one interesting story is in Las Vegas. 2 weeks ago, everyone knows they cleaned house. They benched Jimmy G. They fired their coach, offensive coordinator, and now they're 2-0. They've looked, I mean, pretty pretty well with Aiden O'Connell at quarterback. They've beat the Jets and Giants, and I was kind of shocked they beat the Giants. I thought they would struggle on that, but I mean, they're 2-0. They're back to 5-5. And my question to you, Zach, is how do you think the rest of the Raiders season go? Do you think they'll continue this win streak and maybe sneak into the playoffs, or do you think they'll kind of fall short?
I don't think this is a playoff team. I think that they do have some pretty considerable holes that they're not necessarily addressing. I mean, the quarterback situation was obviously something that you had to get figured out, and they really did. I mean, not getting rid of, but benching Jimmy was the correct decision, and getting rid of McDaniels also was solid. But I think that this week that we're coming up on is kind of come back to earth. Um, I don't think that the Dolphins are really going to give them much of an opportunity to win this game. But then again, the Dolphins really have struggled to win against winning teams over the season. I think all of their 3 losses come from winning teams. Really so far within the season, like this is the people that they've beat so far. Let me just break down the schedule, which as I look at it, even just right now, is looking way too easy. You got the Dolphins have beat the Chargers, that's 1. Patriots 2, Broncos 3. They lost the Bills, who at that time were winning, which looks pretty bad now. Giants win 4, Panthers 5, and then Patriots again 6. Like they haven't played anyone really even within that mid category at like other than the Bills who they lost to. And like this game could be a whole lot closer than we think, but I do think that the Raiders will lose. And I think it kind of does start a not like a cataclysmic fall. Um, but I mean, they don't have an easy schedule by any means going forward either. The Raiders have Chiefs, Vikings, Chargers, Raiders. Sorry, the Raiders have Chiefs, Vikings, Chargers, Chiefs again, and then Colts and Broncos towards the end, which shouldn't be. None of those games are easy. So I don't think that the win. I don't think there's 5 there for them.
Yeah,
I don't think.
and
I
that's what
think.
you kind of really
Yeah.
need to hit.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just and 5 wins is kind of a hard place to be in anyway right now. So with the Raiders still not looking amazing, and I mean, they've got a good foundation to build off of with this new coach, but I just don't think that this season is the one, which is okay. There's only one team who ends up winning it all. Um, and I mean, it's good. If you are a Raiders fan, you should be encouraged with what you've
Yeah,
seen
I
so far.
think these last 2 weeks have been like it's been helpful for Raiders fans, I would almost say.
Max Crosby, though, has been like that's when we say that the Raiders defense it really struggles outside of everyone other, not named Max Crosby. I mean, that seems to have been good enough for them though. Like Max Crosby is not a sleeper candidate because I feel like he gets the recognition he deserves, but he is a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year with the way he's been playing, and he's
Yeah,
putting up stats in a way that other people are not. I would say that Myles Garrett should still kind of edge him out as it relates to who should get the honors, but he has the better stats than everyone else in the game right now. The amount of sacks he has is pretty crazy. Um, and if he wasn't there, I think this team would be completely different.
yeah. All right, so that was so Raiders. That'll be another interesting. We got like the thing is the AFC is so wide open, so you never really know. But one thing is Josh Dobbs. He has also led his team to a 2-0 start and kept this Vikings win streak going. And the question is, can Josh Dobbs lead the Vikings to the playoffs? And I think yes, by the way he's played these past 2 games. He started well in Arizona, and everyone was like, okay, maybe this guy can play. And then he had like a couple bad weeks, got benched for Clayton Tune, which I don't know why really right now.
I think that was just that was a trade capital thing. Like I think they knew they were going to do something even though they were telling him otherwise.
Yeah, I think they were just ready to have Kyler back, but they play Broncos this week, Bears, Raiders, Bengals, Lions, Packers, Lions. I think they lose to the Lions and probably the Bengals, but all the other games are wide open, and they're already sitting at 6-4. I think they're in a pretty good position to make these playoffs here without Kirk Cousins. Because I mean, they're on a 5-game winning streak right now after starting 2-4, so or 1-4, sorry. So I mean, this is a very interesting thing to look at. Like, I did not think I was like, me and you were both kind of questioning the Josh Jobs move at first. I feel like
Yeah, I
we,
I don't know if you remember what I said when this was off the record. We were just this isn't on a podcast or anything, but do you remember when we were speaking and we talked about how I thought it wouldn't be a good decision if unless you're going for a superstar, and then there were talks about Jameis, and then you had mentioned like Baker was an option, like if they could somehow find a way to trade for Baker. And I was like, they could go for Dobbs, and I would like Dobbs over Baker. I remember indicating that that like Dobbs was the one to go for because you wouldn't really have to give as much to prime away from
eh,
anybody, and he had the potential to move around in the. I didn't say that, but that's just in the back of my head. This is, but I think that this was the right decision for the Vikings to make, and it's playing off pretty well. Like he's moving it around like he has wheels, man. He
I know.
and I don't know if you this is like a Browns fan, like this is a deep cut even for Browns fans, but in his preseason there was a game, I forget who they playing against, but he nearly got sacked in the pocket, rolls out of the pocket, and the guy has him by the jersey, and he like rips his jersey so long. He's holding on to his jersey for like 10 yards, and he just takes off for like what is close to a touchdown run. And that's when we're like, during the time when Jacoby was here, if during the times where he was struggling, it was like we should kind of give Dobbs a nudge because there were a couple of instances where he was able to put some wheels on him. And I mean, he's been able to give this Vikings defense like another dimension that you can't get under Kirk, which isn't to say that Dobbs is better than Kirk, but I mean, he's risen to the occasion. And when you have Justin Jefferson coming back here in the next couple weeks, like I don't know.
I
I don't
think
know if it's
he'll
this
end up
week,
playing
but
this week because I mean
you
it
think,
said
yeah,
that like there was a report that came out. It was either yesterday or Monday that like he can run without like any pain now.
yeah.
So I
Well,
think
that makes it even scarier. And if you're able to, granted, these teams that they've played haven't been great. Like the Falcons are decent, but and so are the Saints really. But that had James, they had
yeah,
Jameis, of course. But I mean, even then, like the Broncos and Bears and Raiders, like these are manageable for Dobbs, I think. And
yeah. I
I don't
think
even
they're
know if we'll say if we
unlike
can see I don't know if he'll come back to earth. Like he looks that good.
unlike the Raiders, they have a very favorable schedule
Hmm.
to where they can really. I mean, I don't think they'll come back and win the NFC North. I think the Lions kind of got that wrapped, but I mean they could be. Who knows? Because I think they do lose to the Lions twice in Bengals, which would put like if they put them at 6-5, and then all the other like automatically are 6-7. Sorry, then all they gotta do is win like 4 out of these like 5 games, and they're very manageable. Because I mean, Bears, Packers, I feel like they're favored in those, and those are both at home too. They've already went away and beat both those teams. So yeah, this could be very interesting, and maybe they upset the Lions or Bengals. Who knows? Like those aren't guarantees, but I think I've been saying is going to get very interesting coming down to week 18, where it really hasn't these past couple years.
Yeah, I'm happy for them. This is a good development. And it was the best move I think that they could make with the capital that they had, and I guess the idea of the team that you want to have going forward. Do you think that it? Oh, I'm afraid though for the Vikings, and I'm afraid for Kirk Cousins because I don't know if the Vikings fans will want to let go of Dobbs if they get in a position where they make a playoff run.
I don't know. I think most of the team really likes Kirk Cousins. So
I
I
agree, but then what do you do? Trade Dobbs away?
I don't know. That's a question for another day. But
Yeah,
for now, Josh Dobbs is the QB this till the end of this year at least. That's an
Dobbs
off-season question.
sanity. Yeah, that is definitely an off-season question, especially if it materializes into a playoff run, which I'm increasingly growing. Um, my likelihood of it happening is increasing in my
And
brain.
don't forget what we were 5 weeks ago. What we were talking about the Vikings. People want them to shut
Yeah,
down.
I want them to blow it up, especially with losing Jefferson at that point.
Yeah, but I had a feel like their schedule is very favorable. So yeah, that and I mean they're on a roll. I mean they could arguably be the hottest team right now.
Hmm. They're the hottest. Let's call them. Yeah, they're definitely like the steamiest. I wouldn't. I don't know if they're the. I don't know if they're the best dish, but they're like the fajitas that come out delivered at a Mexican restaurant. They got the most steam, but they may not. They may not be the. They may not fill you up the most.
I got you.
All right. With that being said, let's move on to the schedule here, which should be a very interesting first two games that we have to discuss. How about you start? How about you take the left column and we go for the Bengals and Ravens first?
Um, yeah, I think this is a must win for the Bengals.
I
And
agree.
I'll tell you why. The thing for the Bengals, it just got announced about 20 minutes ago that T. Higgins and Sam Hubbard will not be playing again. So we are down them, which kind of sucks. But the reason this is a must-win game is one, I don't we haven't I don't think we can afford to fall to 5-5. And two, I don't think we can start 0-3 in the AFC North. Because remember we're 0-2 in the AFC North because we lost the Browns, Ravens in back-to-back weeks. And with the Ravens coming off a like very intense game with the Browns. And I mean you could say for the Bengals, but I think the Bengals had like a lot it's like they realized they beat themselves. And I mean I guess you could say that but the Ravens, but it was like they blew a 14-point lead at home. I think that's very devastating. I think this is the time for the Bengals to go into Baltimore and win. And we did it 2 years ago. And we were in a similar spot now. I think we were 5 and I think we were 4-3 going into that game in 21, and we came out, and it was another like kind of must-win game because I mean, but the last 2 years we started 5-4, and we've seen what happened. We're 5-4 again, and we're gonna see what happens because the Bengals got a tough schedule, but I can see that they can still get it done. Like this is not like a Raider situation where they're dead to rights. I think the Bengals have a very good shot here, and I think they need to start this last stretch of the season off with a win in Baltimore. It's going to be tough, but I'm picking the Bengals just because I need them to, and it's a must-win game.
Yeah, I
But
can't really front you for that, especially since it is so close, and I think it is going to be pretty like anyone who says they have a definitive read on this game is lying. And there are way too many factors that you can take into consideration. As a Browns fan, I do want the Bengals to win this because we're looking at a potential situation where the Browns could win. It could be at the top of the AFC North if the Bengals win and then the Browns win. But with the situation today, I don't even think that we would be able to hold that. So I don't really have any. That's just me clearing my bias before I get started. Um, Here's the thing: the Ravens did look really good offensively up until the second half, where they stopped running it with that undrafted free agent whose name is uh, completely out of my head right now. Let me pull it up.
I forget
Who
his name too. I know who you're talking about though.
it was crazy. When I say it was crazy how much he was running, it was Keaton Mitchell.
Yeah,
He
that's
averaged 11 and 3. He averaged 11.3 yards on each carry, but they only gave it to him 3 times instead of opting for Gus Edwards, who the Browns were able to easily shut down 2.2 yards per carry. That is atrocious. And when you say that like here's the thing. I'm of the opinion that this was a well-deserved Browns win. I don't think that it's fair to say necessarily that the Ravens like choked up and like which I mean they to a degree that they did, but a lot of it was induced by our defense just being able to shut them down. But one glaring issue is that Keaton Mitchell not getting any runs past that touchdown he was able to secure. Like that is a big issue, and Harbaugh needs to be concerned about that, and really Ravens fans should be concerned about that as well. If they get him moving, which I don't think they will, you're in big trouble. And then also Zay Flowers looked pretty electric as well. Like I haven't seen a guy move like that in a really long time, and I think that's going to be an issue for your defense. Um, this is really hard for me. Like I genuinely don't know who can win this game because I'm trying to think about where the injuries are as like I think I'm gonna have to give it to the Ravens. I think the Ravens do win it at home, just with the capacity that I think Lamar is going to try and get back after a pretty not awful game by him, but a pretty disappointing game by him in an AFC North matchup. But I think that going forward, the season is still within reach for you guys if you lose this game, because I mean you
I
do still
think
have 7 games after that.
I think if we lose this
Um,
game, we don't win the AFC North.
no, definitely not. I don't think so. If I think the Ravens are pretty much a shoe in if they win this game. Um, but that is a shoe in for the AFC North if they win this game.
Well, that's
Um,
if Lamar stays healthy as well.
yeah, with the current roster that I would bet on that. But I think the Ravens do unfortunately find a way to win this one at home after a pretty gross loss. But here's this isn't going to change my mind, but I think one thing you can take advantage of, and we saw this against the 49ers, when you go against a dominant defense like the Browns and you go against like a dirty defense like the Browns, not dirty in the sense that they make dirty plays and they go for injuries or anything like that, but a really physical team, your team still feels that. Like that is something that you carry into next week, and I think that if you're able to take advantage of that, that is the way that you do win.
And this is a very quick turnaround.
Yeah,
This is
that's true.
they get 3 days of rest and then they're back
That's
out
true.
there.
Because the teams like the Browns, I mean, you kind of saw this with the Browns as well because they played against the Niners. Good defenses like that, they beat you up, and I think that may still be residual.
Yeah, and I mean, it was a like the Bengals also played a close game, but it was nowhere nearly as physical.
Yeah,
And
and I
I
don't.
think
Yeah,
I would feel a lot more confident if T Higgins or even Sam Hubbard was playing, because Trey Hendrickson's on day to day. And I mean, yeah, the Bengals had it won ha, not had it won, should have won. Both both teams were trying to lose that Texans or Bengals game, and I think that's going to put a bet. I think Joe Burrow knows that like he's going to adapt because I don't think those are rare like mistakes by him. I wouldn't even say the first interception in the fourth quarter was his mistake because it got tipped and by the tight end, like he kind of like dropped it a little bit. But I think he knows that second interception was his fault. And I don't think we'll be seeing those mistakes much more because I think he's still finally just getting like 100%, which is good for us. Because I don't know if you watched much of that game because obviously the Browns one was going on as well, but he was running all over the place, especially in the pocket, which is a very good sign. And I think that's one thing that could be a factor is Joe Burrow's legs.
yeah.
But
I think also that you, there's a thing though. Your offensive line still is like not performing, and we were we were talking about this when we were watching the game on Sunday. It's like I think you guys were cursed by a witch like 3 billion years ago to never have a good offensive line, no matter what improvements you made to it. And I think that if Joe Burrow is moving around more, which I think he should have been doing in the first place, taking less sacks, that is a net positive for your team. And I think that they've kind of started to figure out that like this isn't getting better. as it relates to the offensive line. But I mean, if Joe Burrow has the playmaking capacity to do whatever he wants, he kind of has that he kind of has an it factor that you can't really pin down, and that's why I think this game will still be close despite all those issues.
But I think we've both said, and I've definitely said all that we can talk about the game. Let's move on to the other AFC North matchup, Steelers Browns. And I'm gonna let you start because this is your
Yeah,
team and you're the Browns, or you're my Browns insider. So
yeah. I'm a broken man, but not defeated. And after the news that I woke up to today of Deshaun Watson being out for the rest of the season after a massive, massive win, like, and really the only thing I was really looking forward to was like I wasn't not that I underestimate the Steelers because we got whipped by them last time, especially by Nick Chubb, but I was like really, really confident. And also, like, I was just really excited for this game between the Bengals and the Ravens because I wanted to get an idea of what the AFC North was going to look like. I was more so excited for this game than anything else. And while I am still excited for this game, with the way that we've seen kind of Kenny Pickett produce, or I guess lack of production, um, my excitement is tempered. Uh, I with DTR getting the start, I think that that is the right decision. I think we have seen uh PJ Walker's like ceiling, and I think when we won that 49ers game with him, I think we won it in spite of him and not because of him. Even without even with those crazy with some of the craziness that he was able to put together in that last drive. I'm not willing to bet on that again though. I think we should use some of the talent that we have in DTR and try and give him the first team reps and get the start. I think that we can just throw out that Ravens game when DTR was starting where he threw those 3 interceptions because that guy had an hour of prep. I couldn't do anything. I with the biggest opportunity of my life, when you give me only an hour to prep for that, I would probably produce in the same way. And I think 99% of the human population, and certainly 99% of the people within the NFL, would do the same as well. Uh, I think that this is a really good opportunity for DTR to get the start. With us being down some offensive linemen, I hope that they're able to get healthier for the week so they can protect him. Um, but I think that the Browns do win this game. I think that with the defense like flying as high as they ever have been, and some of the turnover potential that we have seen, especially in that game against the Ravens, in which Newsome was able to, sorry, Greg Newsome was able to hit that running interception and run for the pick six. Like I think that this defense is going to be defiant in the face of the Steelers, and I think that they're not really going to be able to put anything together. Uh, I'm not going to talk on like the Pickens drama with like Kenny Pickett or anything. I don't think that that'll affect it at all. I just don't think that the Kenny Pickett has the capacity to lead a dominant performance against this defense, and I don't think it's going to have to be a great showing by DTR either. Um, One thing that I think people are sleeping on too is that with Nick Chubb, the Browns actually have some of the best running in the league right now, even with Jerome Ford performing below pretty acceptable analytic standards. Like the Browns have like either the second best rushing yards or rushing efficiency. I can't remember the specific stats in the league right now with those two running backs on hand. I think that if you can lean on that, then you can definitely find a way to win against the Steelers. And I think that it'll be gross, but being at home does help as well. Um, so that's what you're listening to right now is just a sad man justify why he thinks that his team is going to win against a team that he hates the most in the entire NFL. It's not the cleanest. It's not the most well thought out, but I'm mostly reassuring myself, but I actually just do genuinely believe that we will win this game.
yeah, I actually agree. Um, I think the Steelers are frauds. I mean,
Yeah,
they haven't. I mean, they beat the Ravens. Who else? I mean, other than that, but that was
but
the
that
wide
game
receiver. That was a
yeah,
wide
that was
receiver disaster.
completely on the
Because
wide receivers.
yeah, that was the Steelers didn't win that game. The Ravens lost it. I mean, that's a really only notable win, other than the Browns. But again, Nick Chubb got hurt. But and I think it's just this is gonna be a real ugly game. It's gonna be like 17-14. I just think you guys got Miles Garrett, who's probably the best defensive player in the nation right now. So I think that's gonna be the X factor for him. And if I think they'll be quick to pull the plug on DTR if he's not playing well as well. So
which is okay. Like
which is
I'm
kind of
alright
a
with
good
that.
thing because you don't want him just keep trying out there after he's thrown like 1,000 interceptions. I'm not saying that he is. I don't really know. I just think this is going to be a very like it's going to be like an Iowa game in the Big Ten, like a just very defensive one. And I think the Browns somehow win it because I mean, even with Kareem Hunt and Jerome Ford, even though I think I trust their running game more than because Najee Harris isn't even the starter anymore. It came out this week that the Warren, I forget his first name.
TJ.
Yeah, is starting now. So that'll be interesting. But I actually think the Browns win by like a field goal, like 17-14, something real small. I don't see that I think like 17 or 21 wins this game. Whoever gets there first.
Yeah, I think that it won't be pretty. I do genuinely think that we may see a spark in DTR this game, though. I think we will see some good throws. I may just be a DTR truther from what I saw in the preseason. I know the preseason is the preseason, but I know that the Browns feel confident in them if they were willing to get rid of Dobbs, which looking at it now doesn't look great. But you were in a situation, I think, at that moment where I don't feel like the Browns felt like they could keep Dobbs and PJ Walker on the same team.
And I
I think
don't
that they,
think
yeah.
they thought Deshaun was going to get hurt. This
No, and even this injury that Deshaun has is so rare and so kind of freak of nature. Like it not that it's going to be like it doesn't sound like it's going to be terrifically difficult to overcome because it sounds like they feel like he's going to make a full recovery and will be able to play at the start of the 2024 season. It's just like not this is not something that you expect to see within a quarterback. It's like it sounded like it was more of a wide receiver injury. But I think against the odds, the Browns will still win against the Steelers. Like I think that they have bigger holes than we do.
then moving on to a game we kind of already talked about, and I think we both are thinking the same direction. Raiders Dolphins. I think even though the Raiders are 2-0 and I think they're gonna struggle to stop Tua in this offense. And they've had a long week after that loss to the Chiefs, and I think they're gonna want to bounce back. And I'm not sure if Chain's gonna come back, but that'll just put another dynamic on this offense. I think the Dolphins win this game and at home.
Yeah, I agree. There's not much more to say about this,
Yeah.
other than what we had mentioned before. I think this game will be closer than people think, though. And people, I want you to listen to me when I'm saying this. I'm not calling the Dolphins frauds, and I'm not saying that they are anything close to thumbs by any stretch of the imagination. But here's the thing: they haven't won against a team who was winning, had a winning record when they played them, and they they lost to the Bills, who have looked beyond terrible, especially in this Broncos game. And I don't think getting rid of the offensive coordinator was necessarily the problem. Now, the Raiders aren't winning, they're tied. So I so I guess this is uncharted territory. I don't know if
But they're
they had
coming
played
off a
anyone tied
winning streak.
before. Yeah.
This is like this would be their best win if they win, which I think they will.
Yeah, and I think it will be closer and I think people may start having the conversation as to like are these teams is this team really legit? But I mean, you are as good as your record says you are. And they're 6-3 and I think that they will be 7-3, and that's a good spot to be in for Miami.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. So I'm glad we were able to just get through that one easily. That was one that we mentioned before. Bears versus Lions. Fields will be making his return. I was wrong last week. We had Bagent starting last week,
Is
which
Fields coming back this week?
it looks so. Yeah, ESPN posted 2 hours ago that the Bears were planning on starting Justin against the
I don't
Lions.
think that changes things, so
No, I think that the Lions will still win this. I mean, this is a good game, I guess, for him to be coming back. It's a good opportunity for him to try and piece things together. If they can have a weird showing like they did against the Commanders, where DJ Moore was able to just become incarnate
Super
incarnate
Saiyan.
Megatron. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know how they replicate that, but if they do, that it is a concern. I would really, really easily put my money on the Lions on this one, especially since it's at home, especially since they do have, um, they've already proven that they can hang in with the big dogs, and this is just something that I think that they're not going to really blink twice about, and I think that the Lions will win this pretty convincingly.
Yeah, I mean, this is at home in Detroit, so I think this and they're coming off a very gutsy win in LA. Like that was I know we like talk a lot about the Chargers, but that was still a pretty impressive win the way they got it done. They won a shootout with the Chargers. That's very hard to do. Not very
Yeah,
many teams can do that. So yeah, I think the Lions, I think this is going to be very similar to the Bears Lions game at home last year where Lions dominated front to end and Justin Fields struggles a little bit because I think it's going to take him a minute to get like his groove. I don't think he's going to come out guns blazing.
yeah. And that's the thing about the Chargers. If the Chargers do get into position where they are shooting, like I think that they can, like they are dangerous. Like that's the point in which I think the Chargers can be a problem for teams. It's just I doubt their ability to get into that spot. Like
Yeah.
I like I think that you you can't put it up to a chance. You can't put a number on it. But if the Chargers do find a way to make things connect and they are stacking points on you, like you really got to respond. And the fact that the Lions were able to do that, they probably met their Chargers at their best and they were able to beat them out. So that just increased my confidence in them.
Yeah.
All right, Brandon, take us into Titans and Jags. A kind of a weird one, dirty one.
Yeah, we talked about how the Jags haven't beaten a good team, and I don't know if this is. I mean, Will Levis has looked pretty good for a rookie. I mean, it's probably third best rookie quarterback after CJ and Anthony Richardson for the small moment we saw him. So, but I think that the Jaguars won this game. I think they'll be able to like put pressure on Will Levis a little bit with Josh Allen and Travion. Hopefully Travion Walker, I don't know. Man, that number one overall pick ain't looking that good right now. Especially with
Yeah.
the way Aiden Hutchinson's playing, which is a different conversation, but I trust the Jags offense to put some points on this Titans defense, as we've seen other teams do, like the Browns and other teams. So I think Jags win this one probably by like 10.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Jags do win this as much as I don't see their prowess. I think that the Jags and a team that has showed some promise, weirdly enough, Levis was really the only kind of ray of sunshine that was showing. I mean, he was able to get DeAndre Hopkins to kind of show why they they really they kind of that was the place where he signed. Um, but I think that the Jags do win. I mean, I think that we really saw the struggles of Levis against that Steelers defense. It did come to be pretty close. But I think that with a defense as decent at this, and they're not stars, they're not amazing, but I think that they're going to be able to stop Derrick Henry, who last week didn't look incredibly productive. And also, when Levis's strength is being able to just throw it deep, and you have a defense who's able to really manage those deep shots, I think that the Jags do win. And I think it'll be around the margin that you had mentioned. I mean, that's still pretty close, but I don't think it'll be particularly exciting. I know I'm not excited.
Yeah, I mean, It's just gonna be an ugly game.
Yeah.
Moving on to Chargers Packers. I mean, I don't know what to do with this Packers team. They are all over the place. They really are,
Yeah,
and I
it's
the
kind of hard to get a
Chargers.
read on them.
Yeah, Chargers gave have given some like hope throughout the season, so that's the reason I'm picking the Chargers. Where besides like what the Packers started, what 2-1, something like that.
Hmm.
Ever since uh, ever since then, it's just they haven't looked that good. I think they're what are they? Do they have 3 or 4 wins now? I know they beat the
The
Rams.
Packers
Yeah,
or the Packers, they have 3 wins.
yeah. So their only other win was against a quarterbackless Rams. So
Mhm.
I think the Chargers are gonna win this game.
So I think that the Chargers, although they are inept and although they struggle, and I think that Brandon Staley, other than maybe Bill Belichick, will be the next coach gone. I do think that the Chargers will win. I think they have more power in terms of rushing. Aaron Jones hasn't been as productive as you would have wanted him to be. And then this connection between Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen really is starting to heat up. So if they are in a space where the offense is producing, and the likelihood that they are going to heat up and really get in that shootout mode is is increasing as the season goes on, I think that the Chargers will win.
Yeah. I like I said, I think just the Chargers are at a better point or in their like season right now than the Packers. Obviously, I mean, I think most people agree with that.
Hmm. All right, Cardinals Texans, which is supposed to be uh I don't really know. I think that before the start of the season, this would have been a game that the Texans would have circled on their calendar as like this is the game that we should be really targeting as a win. And I think that they thought that they would be sort of behind schedule or really just looking to win as many games as possible towards the end, and that they would be eliminated by playoff contention at this point. But at this point, the Texans I think should win this game in a fairly dominant manner. CJ Stroud has been able to produce like no one else has been able to, and although their defense hasn't been stellar and has been letting up some big breakaways by some dominant wide receivers, I don't even think that the Cardinals have that on file, even with Hollywood Brown. I think that they may struggle to take care of Kyler, but I think CJ just has the capacity in himself um, to win out. And I'm really excited to see what Tank Dell is able to produce because although he got hit pretty hard in that Bengals game, I was happy to see him come back in.
Yeah, I think that Kyler Murray and I mean he came back and got them a dub. So I wouldn't say this is a for sure win for the Texans. I think they should be favored, but I don't think you can. Kyler Murray is a dynamic quarterback. He is a borderline Pro Bowl type quarterback. Um, I think if there was like he gives Cardinals a good chance in this game. I don't think he'll be able to pull it off, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did, if that makes sense. The Texans they beat the Bengals last week, and I yeah their offense is pretty good. They carved up the Bengals defense for that game, so I'm going to go Texans as well.
Yep.
And then this next game is kind of like, I mean, we have at least one of these every week where I think we both don't need to talk about it that much. Cowboys, Panthers. I mean, Cowboys have been on an absolute tear these past couple weeks. Really, since they lost to the 49ers. I mean, they did lose to the Eagles, but like that was still a competitive game, and it came down to the very last play. But I think the Cowboys kill. I mean, this is gonna be similar fashion as last week, and they beat Panthers at Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, and the Cowboys have had a pretty easy schedule too. I mean, you're in a decently hard division, especially with the Eagles in there, but with the Giants in the state that they are in right now, with the people that they've drawn outside for this schedule, it's been pretty easy as well. I mean, they've played the Patriots, uh, they played the Jets. Well, I mean that's within their division, but they really should have beat the Cardinals. That was a really strange fluke that Dobbs was
Yeah,
able to accomplish. But I mean, other than that, they played the Niners, which they did lose, and the Rams they were able to win. Chargers and now Panthers. So I mean, with those teams in and of itself, like you really should have won all those games except for the Niners, which wasn't competitive. Um, so they got really lucky, and I think that this is just another showing of their luck. And the Cowboys really should hold these Panthers to less than what they held the Giants. I was surprised that they were able to let the Giants get, what was it, 17 points on them.
Yeah.
That's too many, and I don't think that the Panthers will be able to do that. But I think that we'll get back to more of a dominant showing, which is kind of weird to say. Granted that they were able to put up nearly 40 points on their head, but realistically, you shouldn't be giving up 17 points to the Giants. That's ridiculous, especially with Tommy DeVito at quarterback. Which brings us to our next topic of conversation, the Giants versus the Commanders, which is another ugly game. And we are looking at a situation where Tommy DeVito is going to stick around for this Washington game, which I will not like watching at all. I will actually take the Commanders in this one. I think that although Sam Howell hasn't been electric, he hasn't been at the talk of the town or anything like that, like CJ Stroud is, which I think has been warranted. I think that Brian Robinson Jr. actually is kind of interesting as a prospect, and he has been able to in this most recent game that they played, he was actually pretty solid and was able to get a considerable amount of rushing yards. Well, actually, not a considerable amount of rushing yards. He only got 38. But he was able to be used actually incredibly in the receiving game for 6 receptions, 119 yards, and 1 touchdown. So although he's not going to run it straight down the middle or anything like that, he has a receiving down, is incredibly interesting, and I think that the Giants don't have a defense with enough firepower to be able to stop a connection as good as that. And then just by and large across the board as it relates to wide receivers, the Commanders have them beat. I think the the best wide receiver for the Giants is it Wan'Dale Robinson. Like Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson themselves are probably better than the entire team, barring Saquon Barkley. So just give me the Commanders in what should be easy, but I think will end up being pretty gross.
Yeah, I mean this Giants team, everyone's injured.
Yeah.
I don't I don't think they'll be favored to win that many more games this year, and I think pretty much everything you just said, I think the Commanders get it done.
Hmm.
Then moving on to, I mean, kind of an interesting game, but kind of not. 49ers Bucks. I've been saying all years, you have been a little bit, that I think this Bucks defense is very underrated. Do I think they stop this 49ers offense though? No. And not very many people have, which I think is okay. But
Hmm.
I think the 49ers started to get their stride back last week, and I actually see them blowing out the Buccaneers in a similar way to what they did the Jags, because I think they're going to be on that type of roll because they got everyone back. That's my
Yeah, I don't normally do this, but I think I agree. But I think the Buccaneers will still be able to put up points. Mike Evans, I don't. It has kind of been a sleeper for wide receivers this time around. He seems to be always open. Like, it, it, and I've this. I'm gonna get credit from like the Bill Simmons podcast for this because he pointed this out as well. But it seems that every time that Mike Evans gets a good ball from Baker, he's able to find a way to get open. And the corners in the Niners room have been a topic of concern. Um, I think that it won't get to a point where they're able to throw as much on them because of the pressure that they're going to be getting on Baker. Um, but I think that they may find a way to at least put up like 9 or 10 points. Um, and but I think the Niners just have an offense good enough to really get things chugging along. Even with especially with Brock Purdy throwing for nearly 300 yards on the Jags, which real quick, uh, I'm back on the Brock Purdy train. He's solid. I don't want to hear anything else. Doesn't turn over the ball in the way that people at his age and at his level of experience do. So I want to hear a ceasing of the Brock Purdy disrespect.
Yeah, I never really hopped off of it, but yeah, I think
Yeah.
Brock
Well, I
Purdy.
was never off of it either, but I just like when you see three losses, it's kind of like, oh,
Yeah,
not fun.
I mean, but everyone has bad games, so
Yeah. All right, let's head over to another, I'd say interesting game in that of the Jets and the Bills, which you guys should know I'm not very optimistic about for the Bills' chances. I think this is a really bad matchup for the Bills offense, especially with the new OC and Josh Allen just being who he is as it relates to turnovers and his inability to make great decisions. Um, I mean, I was watching a podcast with Tom Brady where he had mentioned that he kind of takes he kind of he kind of takes issue with the amount of throws that he makes when he should just kind of get rid of it or run it rather. I mean, we've seen before that he I mean, he's a tall guy, he's strong. He's able to run in a way that a lot of people can't, and I think he eh, that's one thing getting rid of the OC will fix is maybe he'll get more designed runs, but that needs to be integrated more into his offense, especially if he keeps throwing these picks. And I actually think that the Jets will win this game. Uh, with their corner room and the capabilities that they have as a defense, and then some of the accountability I think that the offense is taking. There was reports of a players only meeting where they had kind of used it as a bonding experience and were able to air out some of their grievances. I think the Jets are on the up and up, and I don't think we're in a place where we'll see Rodgers come back. But this just seems like another trap game, and I think the Bills will lose.
yeah, I also agree because we've seen this before, and with Josh Allen really hasn't got any better. And we saw how much he struggled against this Jets defense, and I think that will help Zach Wilson be able to move the ball a little bit. And we're hearing rumors middle of December for Aaron Rodgers, so I think the Jets need to stay around this like playoff contention range. And I think the Jets win this one and sweep the Bills this year, which would be interesting.
Yeah.
And then moving on to Seahawks Rams. I am picking the Seahawks in this game solely because I don't know who's playing quarterback. And I and it's like they didn't pick up Carson Wentz for no reason. I think this Stafford thumb injury is more like it's worse than they're letting on. I think that's why they picked up Carson Wentz. So if Stafford plays, I think it'll be like he'll be that his thumb will still be compromised. And then if he obviously doesn't, Wentz will play. But I think just because of that and the Seahawks, they've been they've been on a bit of a roll recently. Even though they've been in close games, I got the Seahawks winning this one.
This is a tough situation for me to be in because I have talked about my lack of belief in the Seahawks, and if they get to 7 wins, then it is kind of concerning. But then again, looking at their schedule, they would have to win three in order for them to be in a place where I think that they're safe. And the only three that I see that I think are remotely winnable for them are Titans, Steelers, and Cardinals there at the end. But I still think that they lose one of those. Here's the thing. I think the Seahawks will still win this. I think the Seahawks will win this game against the Rams, even though their showing against the Commanders wasn't great. Um, they really should have been able to capitalize on it. And Gino still threw for 369 yards, which is kind of overlooked. I don't really. This kind of speaks more to the incapabilities of the defense than at that point, rather than as opposed to the offense, which is I've been kind of been given flack recently. But even with what I would categorize as a better defense than that of the Rams over the Commanders, I think the Seahawks will still be able to produce, which gets them a 7. But I think it gets real rough from here on out. Um, like I had mentioned in our podcast prior, it goes on to next to then being the Niners, Cowboys, Niners, Eagles, Titans, Steelers, Cardinals. So not easy going forward. And who knows what the Cardinals will look like by the end of the year. So I'm sticking with my gut. I'm sticking with what I called earlier that the Seahawks aren't going to make it out, but I will take the I will take the Seahawks in this one. All right, next one we're gonna have the Vikings and Broncos, which kind of should be interesting. We have two teams who I would categorize as on the up and up. They're both hot. They're both steaming. They're both hot and ready to. They're Little Caesars hot and ready. Um, it's interesting because Russell Wilson has started to kind of now that he's reverted back into prime Russell Wilson, because that would be kind of disrespectful to prime Russell Wilson. But it's encouraging to see him running more. It's encouraging to see him settling into the scheme um, that Peyton has drawn up for him, and it seems like this team is really actually confident. But I think this will actually be a decent primetime game on Sunday night. I do think the Vikings will win though. With Dobbs being able to produce and then Justin Jefferson potentially coming back, eh, Justin Jefferson alone is too much for any defense. Well, most defenses, and it's certainly too much for this Broncos defense, even with decent personnel they have on their roster like Pat Surtain. Give me the Vikings in this one and a dominant reappearance of Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, I also agree. I think Vikings won this one. But I still think the Broncos, they've already played the Chiefs twice and won one of them. So like their biggest like opponent is already like past them. So I think the Vikings win, and we've already mentioned about I think they'll get in the playoffs. And the Broncos will be interesting to see if they can make a run. 'Cause with after this game, if they do lose, it'll put them at 4-6, which will be pretty difficult. But I don't know. I they're playing better, but I don't think this like is a guarantee win for the Vikings either. So yeah, that's that. But I do think the Vikings come out on top.
No, which is why I think it'll be a fun game. I think
Yeah.
this is something that's worth. This is definitely a watchable
For
Sunday night.
once, we got two really good primetime games with the one we're getting ready to talk about in Bengals Ravens. And then that one, I mean, it's good. I think it'll still get a lot of numbers. But our Monday night game is Eagles Chiefs this week, and this is probably the game of the year so far.
Hmm.
We got probably the one seed in the AFC, I believe, is the Chiefs, and then the one seed in the NFC is in the Eagles. And both these teams are coming off a bye, right? Yeah. Or did the Eagles
Yes.
play? Yeah, both teams coming off a
Yeah,
bye.
because
So
Kelsey is
they've
in Argentina.
yeah, both teams had 2 weeks to prepare for this game, and I think the Eagles are going to be a lot more physical up front and cause a problem for the Chiefs with their physicality, and I think the Eagles win a slugfest. This will not be a blowout whatsoever. This will come down to the wire, and I think Jalen Hurts gets his revenge from the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah, I actually think actually think the Chiefs will win this one. I think that this is a situation in which I mean the Chiefs have long lauded been known as a team that has struggled defensively. Not that they've been awful or anything, but they've not been great. Uh and they've definitely struggled in important instances. Um I think that this is one of the better defenses that the Chiefs have had in a really, really long time, and I think that Mahomes also agrees with that. And I think that with the Eagles struggling to produce in the games in which they really should have been able to, I think this will come back to bite them in a team that's going to be able to punish that, especially with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelsey. Uh, that was kind of a concern because Kelsey did sort of look lethargic coming off this most recent game, but I think getting a bye and being able to kind of take a rest. I mean, we don't really know how much the flu affected Patrick Mahomes in that Broncos game, but I think that we'll see a return to form. And I mean, you had mentioned that you think the Eagles are going to be a whole lot more physical, which is your prerogative, and I think that's what explains your rationale. I think that if they are physical and if they are able to execute in a way that they haven't been able to, and AJ Brown's able to get moving, which he certainly has been able to, but if he's able to get open on this Kansas City Chiefs offense, defense, pardon me, um, it's going to be dangerous, and the Eagles maybe keep it a whole lot closer, but I still am taking the Chiefs at home.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be a very good game, and everyone's gonna have their eyes on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, another good week of football is on the plate, and I think it's only gonna
Mhm.
get more interesting from here.
Yep. I totally agree. It'll be fun to see some uh, AFC North movement. Will anyone end with a losing record? I guess we shall see. Thank you guys so much for listening again. We appreciate your support. We appreciate your time, and we're super excited for this football, and we hope you are as well. Have a great rest of your day.
Yep. Peace.
Peace.